America, America, make God thy gold refined, till all success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies.
Hello, and welcome back to Wayland Weekly Buzz. I'm your host, Susan Wagner. Our spotlight this week is on our new town administrator, Louise Miller. Host Ken Isaacson will be back with that interview right after these town government committee reports and other news items. It's official. Starting next September, on weekdays, the town's middle and high school students can sleep in about an hour later, while elementary schoolers will have to set their alarms roughly an hour earlier. The move is supported by a large body of scientific research on the sleep patterns of preteens and adolescents. After several years of debate and discussion, the school committee at its last pre-Thanksgiving meeting on November 19th voted 4-1 to support the change. The lone holdout was Ellen Greco, who cited concerns that the studies on elementary school children are still inconclusive. Starting next fall, then, the 3 elementary schools in town will start at 7:55 a.m., while middle and high schools will shift to 8:35 and 8:30 a.m. respectively. The devil is in the details, though, but the school committee and administration have almost a year to iron these out. Meanwhile, School Superintendent Arthur Unobsky has told the Buzz that he's excited to work with the school community to implement the new start time successfully and to ensure that the benefits of the changes are implemented effectively. On to the Selectmen. On November 7th, the board wrote to Raytheon regarding the land and building at Town Center that are to be gifted to the town. They're seeking Raytheon's approval to use the parcel to redevelop and build our new Council on Aging Community Center. As of this broadcast, a response has yet to be received. The Selectmen have also written to the Massachusetts Department of Transportation regarding a parcel of land at 105 Boston Post Road in Sudbury. The town hopes to utilize the parcel in a public-private partnership with Herb Chambers Auto Dealerships for school bus and automobile parking. As for the Board of Public Works, a pre-Thanksgiving powwow was held with 2 selectmen and the board's Finance Committee liaison to review the Water Enterprise Fund, the need for a multi-year fiscal plan, how fund interest should be handled, and a marching plan to prepare the advanced meter reading article for Springtown meeting. And they gave thanks for the completion of the Route 27, Route 30 intersection project in Cochituate. We joined them in that. Meantime, the Recreation Commission has also been busy with a number of projects. At their most recent meeting, the commissioners voted to support a boat launch on Dudley Pond, which will give Wayland Police and Fire emergency access to the pond in case of an emergency there. School Superintendent Unobsky also attended the meeting to ask for the Commission's support in creating new programs for school children to coordinate with changes in the starting times. The Commissioners are awaiting further information in order to act on Unobsky's request. The Oxbow Meadows Field project has been delayed because of the unusual amount of rain this fall, the Commissioners report. They hope to get it open by late spring of next year. Meantime, the plans for a turf field at Loker Conservation and Recreation Area are moving along. The Commissioners are waiting for an okay from the Conservation Commission, which is scheduled to meet on November 29th, in order to go ahead. Finally, the board discussed renaming Riverview Field in North Wayland in honor of Eric Schwartz. Schwartz was a Wayland resident and a lifelong youth sports mentor who died last November at the age of 54. Next, the Wastewater Management District Commission, at its November 14th meeting, began by introducing Richard Pez Bozzoli, Wayland's new wastewater operations manager. He, along with Paul Brinkman, the town engineer, are preparing a request for proposal for a contract operations and maintenance company for the Wayland High School wastewater facility and the wastewater management district. They will also be working with Town Facilities Director Bill Keefe. In addition, the Commission is continuing its conversations with the Board of Public Works regarding potential reorganization or combination of the Commission into Public Works. Finally, Town Moderator Dennis Berry held his post-town meeting Moderators Forum on November 20. The meeting started with a brief recap of the town's relationship with OTI, the vendor for the electronic voting system, looking towards resolution of some concerns that initially cropped up last April. Other topics discussed included how to handle late arriving buses at town meeting when attendees are forced to use satellite parking lots, and how to deal with calls for points of order, particularly the length of description the moderator should allow. Finally, the issue of amendments to motions elicited a good deal of discussion. To what extent, for example, do all proposed amendments need to be in writing, distributed to all participants, available for exhibit on the screen, and/or provided to the moderator and town clerk? Barry says he will take all the ideas generated at the meeting under consideration in order to determine if an expansion of the moderator's rules is warranted. That's it for committee reports. Now on to our interview.
Hello, I'm your host, Ken Isaacson. Our guest this week is Wayland's new town administrator, Louise Miller. Louise has been on the job since the beginning of September. She's taken time from her busy schedule to talk about her background before coming to Wayland and her goals for her new position, and some of the challenges and opportunities ahead for Wayland. Louise, thanks for being on The Buzz, taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, let's start out by tell us about some of your past roles in government and how they prepared you for the position in Wayland, please.
Sure. So I think I've done both sides of the coin in terms of serving in government. And I think that's prepared me particularly well for the town of Wayland. And I'll get to why it prepared me particularly well for Wayland. So in Needham, I started getting involved in local government a number of years ago. And I ran for school committee, which is, as you know, an elected position. I also ran for commissioner of trust funds at one point in time. In addition to that, I've held a number of appointed positions. I've been on the finance committee, I was on the cultural council, open space committee. So I understand the policy making needs of boards and commissions. I have also served on the other side of government as an employee of towns. The one job I would highlight most would be my position in Medford, where I worked for a mayor, and I served as chief procurement officer, I served as budget director, I served as personnel director, and I also rolled out a capital plan. So having had the experience working in government both as an employee, trying to be responsive to the citizenry, and then as well as a board of committee member trying to direct the employees of a town, I understand what the needs are of the various components of government.
And the second part about Wayland?
So the second part about Wayland, and I was going to get to that with a little bit later, but we can talk about this now. So in Wayland, there are a lot of boards and committees. It's, I think, a very unusual town in that way in terms of the number of boards and committees and the involvement of the citizenry in the government. So it's a particularly well-educated citizenry, and it's also a particularly knowledgeable citizenry about how government should operate. So Wayland stands out in terms of needing someone who has that type of experience, someone who actually understands what the needs of boards and committees are, not just from the inside, how managing the government team in order to achieve the goals of the boards and committees are.
Okay, yeah, we are a little different in that way, and that's starting to change a little bit, isn't it?
I don't think that the citizenry is going to change in terms of its involvement. I think what might change going forward a little bit is delegating more of the day-to-day workload to the town employees. I think right now there are a lot of committees that are doing a lot of the work that is government work. And I think as people, younger people move into the community and you have more two-income families, and people just don't have as much time as they used to devote to these governmental activities. I think you're going to see that more of that needs to be delegated to town employees.
What do you think are the key issues? I mean, I know you've only been in the job for about 6 months now, but what do you think are the key issues facing the town in the short and intermediate term? So
right now I'm working on the budget for the town, and I think one of the issues that I've identified in terms of putting together a balanced budget are increasing the revenue sources for the town. So long as the town is operating under Proposition 2.5, the tax levy can only increase by a certain amount. So there have to be other revenue sources in order to provide the services that the town is looking for, and that includes, capital projects.
You have some ideas about that?
I have some thoughts. I think we need to work a little bit on infrastructure. One of the limiting factors right now to commercial development in areas where commercial development could be a little bit more robust is infrastructure, water and sewer, as well as roadways. Better roadways, more pedestrian access, perhaps more lights, just looking at traffic patterns.
What, if anything, have you learned here in Wayland that surprised you?
I'm not sure anything in particular surprised me, but something that was very different about Wayland was the level of involvement of the citizenry. I was aware of the number of boards and committees, but I was not aware of the level at which the town of Wayland citizens are involved in all of the activities of government.
What kind of skills do you think are going to be necessary? I assume making these changes that we're talking about with in the way the town is working by having more, having the employees more responsible versus the boards, which is the long-term plan. What kind of issues do you think will arise from that, and what kind of planning do you think is important to be successful at that?
So I think, first of all, everybody's got to keep a positive attitude. We're all working toward the same goal. We want to achieve the goals of the town of Wayland. So that would be the first thing. I think seeing everyone working together more as a team would also be one of the things that I would hope that we would work on, and that would be both from the board's perspective, so that boards work together more, interact more, as well as from the employee perspective. So bringing together the department heads, the department managers who work with the various boards and getting them to work as a team, moving in the same direction to achieve that joint vision, the shared vision of where we're going with the town of Wayland.
Okay. So let's talk about goals a little bit.
Yep.
What are your goals? There's several things that are happening in town that are there for you to deal with, obviously. What are your goals for your first year?
So I am working on the budget process, and while the budget process was put in place before I arrived here, the Board of Selectmen put together a list of items that needed to be completed for the budget, and they're working to the current code. One of the things I'd like to see is more efficiency and transparency in the budget. So since I've arrived here, I have worked very closely with the finance director and with the department managers to put together a capital plan and to put together operating budgets, which were submitted to the finance committee, that were in more of a, rather than individual requests, it was more of a total budget request with the town managers, or town administrator, I apologize, town administrators' recommendations as to what the what items should be prioritized, or perhaps if there is insufficient funding, then which items should be funded at this point for fiscal year 20, and perhaps others put off for a later year.
So what role will the Finance Committee play in this scenario?
So the Finance Committee actually is responsible for the recommendation to town meeting on the budget. So what it does is it gives the Finance Committee an initial review of the budget, and it also, based upon what is happening internally, which they can't see what the different needs of the different departments are, it allows me as a manager of the different department heads to weigh the various needs and prioritize where, if the different department managers come in and make their case, I think it's a little bit more difficult for the Finance Committee to see which item should be prioritized over another when they look like equally competing needs. The other thing I would say is sometimes there may be efficiencies that may not be apparent when each one of the budgets is looked at separately, that when you look at the budgets together, there may be efficiencies that can be gained. And that can be on the capital side as well as the operating side. So a project that might be proposed by one department might actually be more efficiently done if a couple of different departments collaborate. And that's on the management side.
Great.
Again.
Okay. What about the town administrator's role?
So I view my role, I stand between boards and committees and the department managers. So my role is to work primarily with the Board of Selectmen to determine what the goals are. The Board of Selectmen will determine the goals, and then to determine what needs to happen in order to achieve those goals. So they determine the what, I determine the how. How do we get there? And then working with the department managers, forming a team to actually achieve the goals.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Thank you. I'm working on it. I think it's doable.
No, of course it is. What other issues are there that we might want to talk about?
I think looking at capital and the capital plan for the town. Right now I'm working on what I'm calling capital catch-up. A number of different capital items were authorized by town meetings over the past few years, and for various reasons, not all of them have been completed. So catching up with the capital that was already authorized, and then working on looking forward a 5-year capital plan that is achievable both financially and also in terms of timeline. I think one of the issues that Wayland is facing is the number of capital projects that are on its plate right now.
There's a large number.
Yes, there are.
We're also have begun working on the town manager special act. What can you tell us about that?
So that's a Board of Selectmen initiative, and what I can tell you is it might be on the town meeting warrant this coming April. The Board of Selectmen really direct that particular goal. I mean, it's their initiative. When I interviewed, I was told that the Board of Selectmen was interested in moving toward a town manager form of government, and I was very excited about that because I think that it's a great opportunity for the town to really sit down and work on what the vision is for the town, and then through the government figure out what it is that we can do as the employees of the town and what structure should we have in order to achieve that vision for the town. I think it's a great, great opportunity right now.
I know, I had a feeling it was coming out in April.
Yeah.
That's when it'll be up. Good. Let's switch and talk a little about a subject that came up a couple of years ago, and it's been, the town's been working on cybersecurity. You probably know that we've had an experience back about, I think it was coming up to 2 years now. We were almost hacked, and since then the town's been playing catch up with our systems and security. Can you give us any kind of an update on that?
Sure. So The town got very lucky 2 years ago that there were no negative impacts to the town as a result of, there was, someone actually did break into the system, but there were no negative impacts, so the town was very lucky. We are at the point where we have at least as good, if not better, security than other communities. We have caught up with our software, with the patching of the software, so that everything is up to date. There has been substantial training of employees in terms of cybersecurity, what to be aware of, what are the traps, and we have also improved on some of the processes in the areas that are vulnerable. So we're doing very well.
Now, is that on the school side as well as the town side?
So, yes, it is on both sides. The town side, I can speak very confidently and say that we are exactly where we need to be. I would have to defer on the school side. I did not do much work to date to determine where we are on the school side.
Fair enough. And right now it's being headed by a contractor.
It is.
Is there any plan to hire anybody specifically for that job?
So he is our IT director. He has the title of IT director. It is working out well for the town right now. I think there are certain advantages to having the person that we have as IT director because he is a consultant in the business. So what we're getting is the expert in IT coming in and working as our IT director. He spends a substantial amount of time in Wayland, and right now it is to our benefit to continue with the arrangement that we have with our IT director.
Now, does he handle both the school and the town side?
So yes, from an infrastructure perspective, so that's why I'm confident that our cybersecurity is up to date, because our infrastructure is up to date. In terms of software, he handles the software on the town side only. The schools are responsible for their own software and their software maintenance.
Okay. Let's see, what else did I want to ask you about? Are there any departments or procedures that stand out with you as needing improvement? And if there are, can you tell us what that might be and what how you might measure success in achieving those improvements?
So right now, yes. One of them, the short answer is yes.
Of course.
I think one of the areas that I'm working on right now and that does need improvement, that is going to take another 1.5 to 2 years to implement, is the permitting process in the town. Permitting.
Yeah, that's been a big issue in the
permitting
past.
is a big issue, not just from a building perspective for private contractors within the town, but it's also an issue in terms of moving projects forward within the town, because projects have to comply with the same set of regulations and go through the same permitting process that outside contractors have to go through. So I came in September, on September 10th is the day I started, and a consultant had been hired under a grant to actually review the permitting process in the town. At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, I provided them with the report of the consultant, and so now we have a roadmap of what the permitting process is in the town by department, and also by department where the bottlenecks are within the permitting process. In addition to, so we have the intra-departmental, which is what happens within the department. We also put together an interdepartmental flow chart, so that someone could come in and say, if I have this type of project, these are all the different departments that I'm going to have to speak with, and this is what we're going to have to do. Step 2 of the process, which is going to start next week, is putting together what the solution is, or what the desired outcomes are for permitting. Where can we achieve better efficiency? How can we achieve better transparency? And by transparency, I mean from a user's perspective, if I'm doing a project, where am I? what are the other boards that I need to talk to? How much longer is it going to take for me to get a decision from this board before I need to go to another board? Or can I go to 2 boards simultaneously and streamline or shorten the process for getting the permitting done before I can start a project? So we're going to be working on that over the next 3 months or so. We're hoping to have a request for proposals done sometime in February to go out to bid and purchase some software that we could then install that would help us with the tracking of the permits and hopefully solve some of the bottlenecks and also achieve some of the transparency and user friendliness that I've heard in the last couple of months people are looking for from the permitting process itself.
Well, that'll be a big improvement.
Yeah, and I've seen it too with the projects that are going forward, how it would be helpful for the town as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looking out 3 to 5 years from now, do you think Wayland will be any different than it is today? And what do you think about that?
So I don't think the culture in Wayland will change. I think Wayland is Wayland. What I'm going to work on with the Board of Selectmen is setting goals, both short-term, the next year, year and a half, and longer-term, 3 to 5 years. And I think it really is up to the Board of Selectmen to set what the vision is for Wayland in the future and in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Anything else we should know about you that you'd like to let us know?
So you had sent me the question, is there anything that people should know about Louise Miller? I have to tell you, I really thought about that for a really long time.
Oh, good.
Because people come in and here's a town administrator and they really only see me as the person who's running that office or the person who sits with the Board of Selectmen once a week and from time to time goes to other boards. So I was going to share a little bit about who I am.
Good.
So
Have at it.
all right. So initially I wanted to be a pianist.
Really?
So yes. So I grew up in Paris, France, which a lot of people don't know or realize, and I was in the Conservatory of Music in Paris. And that is until the age of 17, that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a pianist. But I happened to also be very good in math, and so when I got into MIT, that became, that kind of took a secondary seat. But that is what I initially wanted to do.
So you never know where your path is going to lead you.
You never know where your path is going to lead you. And I'd like to go back to, I practice the piano and I do still play, but I think at some point in time, I'd love to spend more time doing that.
Oh, piano is wonderful.
So,
when I was a kid, I took 3 years of piano, and then I played for a while, and then I stopped, and I haven't done it for a long time.
Yeah.
But I used to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the value of it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's one of those very calming, soothing activities, too. You can sit and you can play. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
You can really relax.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's good to know.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you all in general for coming on the show and filling us in on what's going on right now and what you're hoping to accomplish in the coming year and what's going on in town. So we'll look forward to having you back at some point.
Thank you.
And thanks again.
Well, thank you. And I really enjoy being in Wayland.
Great.
So thank you for having me. Yes.
That's the buzz for this week. Next week, our spotlight once again is on plans to improve the business district on Route 20 and in Cochituate, the commercial buildings on Main Street at West Plain Street. Our guest will be Town Planner Saki Sarkeesian. That begins on December 9th. And remember, the buzz airs on Sundays and Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on your public cable channel, Comcast Channel 8 and Verizon Channel 37. And we're online on demand anytime at our website, waycam.tv/buzz. There you'll find an archive of past programs and a schedule of upcoming shows, along with links to documents from subjects presented on the shows. And you'll find a transcript of this week's interview, along with our committee reports, every week in the Town Crier, both in print and online. If you have a town issue you'd like discussed on The Buzz, Call us, email us, or use the contact form on the website. Tell us what's on your mind and what you think about the show. I'm your host, Ken Isaacson. On behalf of the entire volunteer crew and guests here at Wayland Weekly Buzz, thank you for watching, and please tell your friends to tune in too.
What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening.